This exercise is going to be how to use a null with After Effects. So if I jump into an Illustrator file for a start, I've got these letters here. I've converted the type to an outline, and then I've ungrouped them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this page down. Just going to crop it in. And it's just the way that I like to work, keep things close to the file. I'm now going to go to the layers, and I'm going to make a new layer, 7 of them, each one for the letter. So what I will do is I'll click on W and I'll cut it, Command X, click on one of the layers, and I'll go Command Shift V, which is a paste in place. Just double click and give it a label, and actually I'll go through and I'll do all of them. And then I will go through and I'll just click on each one of the letters, and I'll do the same thing. Command X to cut. Command is Control on a PC. Click on the layer. Command Shift V or Control Shift V on a PC, and I will just go through, cutting it and pasting it in place. Now that I have that file, I'll save it. Give it a name. And save it where I want to save it. It's an Illustrator file. Save. And then I'll jump into After Effects. I'll create a new composition, and HDTV 1080-25 gives me these specs. It's a 10-second animation, the background's white. I'll go OK, and I'll bring in that Illustrator file. So I'll double click in the project window. I'll open it, and when I open it, I don't want it as footage. I want it as composition, retaining the layer size. I have my composition here, and I'll drag it in. The first thing I'll do here is I'm going to double click on it, and I'm just going to change this composition so it's the same size. Composition settings, I'll change it to the HDTV. Change the background to white so I can see everything. I'll go OK. So now that I've opened this up, I can see I've got all my letter forms here, so I'm going to create a null. So I'll go Layer, New, Null Object, and what this does is it creates a little square of nothingness, and I'm going to use it as a parent. So I'm going to go to the W, click on the pickwork, hold down and drag, and I'm going to drop it onto the null. And you can see it comes up here saying it's attached to the null. So what I'm going to So now that I open this up, I can see all my letters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one, go Command A or Control A on a PC to select all. And I'm going to find the alignment tool. Click it open, and I'm just going to hit center, and I'll hit center down here as well. Everything's centered, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null. So I'll go layer, new, null object, and it creates a little shape of nothingness. So I can use that as a parent. So with the W, I'm going to click and hold down and drag the pickwick so it touches the null, and you'll see it come up here. The W is now connected to the null, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the W a wee bit bigger. So I'll hit S for scale, and I'm going to just scale it up slightly. Vitete means kind of thunder and storminess in that, so I'm going to try and make this a bit kind of stormy looking. So what I'll do now is I'll go to the H, I'll pickwick it, and I'm going to attach it to the W this time. Okay, so I'll grab that, I'll move it out, I'm going to go Y, which brings up the pan tool, and I'm going to move the center into the center of that W. I'm going to hit R for rotation, and I'm going to give it a full rotation of 2. First, what I need to do is I need to click it, move the playhead along. I'll go 3 seconds, and I'll hit diamond. So I've got that keyframe, so I've got 2 there. I'll come back to the first one and I'll just make that 0. So it starts off on 0 and it goes to 2. So let's have a look at what it's doing. So it's doing 2 full rotations as it goes around. So now with this, I'll take it back to the start, and I'm going to do the next one. So now I'm going to get the A. I'm going to pickwick it, hold down, join it to the H. So now what ends up happening, I'll come up here and get the arrow tool, which you'll see as V. So you can just hit the V tool or the V key. I'll try and grab it without distorting it. And I'm going to move it out here. I'm going to hit Y and change it to the center of the H. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit rotation. And the last one was 2, so this time I'm going to click it, move it across, and I'm going to double it. So I'm going to make it 4. Let's play it, see what happens. So now we have the H going around, and we have the A circling around the H. So I'm going to close some of these. I'll just hit U when I click on the layer, and it's going to close them. And I'll go to the next one, which is the I, pickwick it to the A. I'm going to change the, hit S for scale. I'm going to change the scale down a bit. I'll hit V because what I'll do first is I'll drag it out here. So back to the start. Drag it out here, and the scale, I'm going to take it down a wee bit. Y will let me change that center point and put it on the A. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit rotation, click it, and I'm going to double it again. So we've got 4, this time it's going to be 8. And we can see it moving about. I think with this as well, if I take it back to the beginning, it's going to put on 0. It looks like it had a little bit of rotation just so it sits up the right way. And I'm going to go to V. And maybe just change it so it starts alongside it. A little bit hard because it's a bit small, so just zoom it up, hold the spacebar down so I can move the hand tool, and then Y, changing that center point again. So now I'm going to go down to the next one, so just while that's highlighted I'll hit U, go to the next, the T, and this time with the T I'm going to pick wicket to the I, hit V key so I can move it. I'm going to hit S for scale and scale it right down again. Y, I can move that center point, so this is going to spin around the I. So again, R for rotation, click it, move it along to where the others are, and I'm going to put it on 20. Just going to scale that down using the Command minus key. Play it again. And we can see it going a bit ballistic. So now with the next one, I'm going to change it again. So I'll hit the U key to close that. We'll go to the I, and this time I'm going to pick wicket to the null. And I'm going to go P for position, and this is just so I can move it out without going in and clicking it with the arrow key. I'm going to hit S for scale. This one I'm going to scale it up a bit, and maybe I'll just drag it a bit further out so it's beyond those other letters. Y, so I can move that center point again, and it's just the same thing. R for rotation, click the stopwatch, hold down the shift key with the playhead so it snaps to where the others are, and I'll go 8 with this one. U, click on it, and I'll go U, go to the one underneath, and this time I'm going to pick wicket to that I, and again I can just go P for position, and if it's small I'm worried about clicking on it, I can bring it out like this. So this time I'm going to get it close, Y, and so it's not going to circle wildly around the whole eye, it's just going to circle around the center of it. So again, back to the start, R for rotation, click the keyframe, shift with the playhead, and then I'll give it a rotation of 4. And last one, click on this, U, go to the I, and this one again I'm going to pick wicket to the other I rather than the R. P for position, move it across, get it right beside the R, get the Y, and this time I'm going to put the center of it down here, so the rotation is going to be slightly different because I've changed that center point. So R, rotation, shift, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a rotation of, I'm going to say 9. And so the rotation of it is going to be a bit different. If I play it, because the large eye is a little bit separate, what I can do with that positioning is I can drag it, and the other two are going to follow. So I'm bringing it in closer, so there's a bit of an overlay, but I need to change that center point, so I hit Y again, bring it back to the W, but maybe this time I'll put it the center point down the bottom so that the rotation is slightly different. I can have a look at what it looks like with blur, so I'll put the motion blur on, and I'm going to drag down and put it on for all of them. There's a couple at the top. You can see the green line, it just has to go through once to render it, and then it'll play in real time. So all of these are parented around the W. So now I can go to the null, go back to the beginning, and I can keyframe this. I can go P for position, hit the stopwatch, move it a little bit, hit V so I can move it around, change the Bezier handles, move it a bit further, again with these handles I can move them around, and I'll move it shift to the end, and then I'm going to bring it back across, get these handles if I can so that I can I'll go to the convert corner tool. It's a bit hard to grab those handles, so I'm going to twist it on itself. Let's have a look. I'll need to go through and render. So I've got this movement, but at the moment it's pretty linear. So what I'm going to do, you can see with all these keyframes, is either I could select them all, Control click, go to the keyframe assistant, and then up to Easy Ease. Let it go through and render once. And now you get a little bit more of this kind of movement where it's easing in and easing out. So it's kind of slowing down as it gets to the top, it speeds up. But of course we can exaggerate that. So now we can go to the graph editor. It will be on speed. And I can kind of play with this a wee bit. So let's just enlarge up so we can see it. So let's go onto this area down here. Oh, just need to change my pointer tool. And you can see as I move this, you can see the dots change. So if I pull the Bezier handle, it's going to go super slow here, and then it's going to rush off at the end. Let's do another one. We'll get this. And we can see with this one, as I pull it across, again, really fast at this point, and then it's going to slow right down. So I'm exaggerating the easing in and easing out, so it's just rendering through. You'll see it, and you'll see it goes slow and then fast. So down here, fast, and then slow, and then fast again. If I come back to the main comp, all of this is going to be happening within that main window. So I'll just drag this down a bit. And drag this so it matches up, and then we'll play. So a null can be a useful tool when you don't want one of the letters to be the main player. Let's go back to the back inside the composition. We'll go to the null again, and this time we'll hit scale. So I'll drag it down to the beginning. Scale. I'll keyframe it as it goes across. to scale it up, and you'll see that everything, the whole animation, scales up because it's parented to the null. So whatever happens to the null is going to affect the rest of it. So here I'll go back to 100. So we're going to have it scale up, and then quickly it's going to scale back down to 0. So let's go back to our comp, and we'll play it. It's going to render through. So you can see that moment it's scaling up, and then it will drop down quickly. And again, with the scale, so if I double click in here, and we look at the null, and we're looking at scale now, I can go back to the graph editor. This time I put it on so I won't see anything until I hit scale, and again we can click on these Bezier handles and start to change things. So what it's going to do now, if we have a look, is it's going to scale really quickly, and then it's going to slow down as it slowly goes back to 100%. So this is only working with the scale now instead of the position. Back to our comp, and let's play it. So you can see how rapidly it scales up. So it's not just the movement now, it's also the scale that is happening faster or slower. So the graph editor can work on whatever you click on here, whether it's scale, whether it's the position. All of these things will start to have an effect.